Hey, this is Gary again from Helm of Sun Valley in San Mateo, California. And today I want to go over how to stretch a ski boot liner. Stretching a ski boot liner is the most effective way to gain length inside of a boot. Usually a ski boot liner does not fill the entire cavity of the shell, and by stretching it, we make it fill that cavity, and you'll be able to have more length when we're done. And it is probably the most effective way to gain length, and it's the easiest way too. So we start off with our liner here, and we want to gauge length. And generally, on our stretching equipment, we have two sizes of heads. I will hardly ever use this small head, because usually when I'm stretching a liner, I want to increase the radius of the toe too, to make it bigger and rounder and not quite so pointy. So I will line these up just to try to gauge length here, like this, and I want to make this as long as I possibly can, so that I can get maximum stretch. I want to get as long as I can, and the limiting factor will be that right there. So I'm going to take this out, add a short extension back in, and then screw it in a bit. So now I've made it, I'm gauging it with respect to this whole boot here. Now I'm going to try to put it in. And it shouldn't go in too easily. I should have to push it in fairly hard. And that's, if it's hard to push in, then I've made it quite long, and that's good. If it's really easy to push in, I've probably made that too short, and I need to make it longer. So I've got it in here. And then I'm just going to take my little cranker, crank it up, and we can watch that right there, and you'll see it expand. Let me just put this one over next to it, the original one. And I'm really gonna crank this guy up. Hopefully it won't split it open or anything. But right now, without even heating it, the sole is a good 1/4 inch longer here. So now I'm going to take it and heat it up with the air gun. And the key here is to heat the liner thoroughly and evenly. So if we were just to heat up a little bit, stop, we wouldn't attain a stretch that's going to last. It would tend to retract, and that's the last thing we want. So we want to heat it up. We want to keep the air gun moving. And primarily I'm concentrating most of the blowing in the toe area, in the forefoot area. The front half of the liner. And also quite a bit of heat on the bottom. Now I want to heat it up enough to where when I touch it, I can hold my hand there. That's not quite enough. I want to heat it up to where I want to retract my hand as soon as I touch it. That's about the right temperature on the bottom. So thorough heating is very, very important for a stretch to really work well. So we'll call that, yeah, I can just barely touch it now. So now at this point I want to let it cool off. If I can have it cool off overnight, that's better. If I want to cool it down really quickly, I can just put it in a water bath here, and it cools down very fast. But ultimately, it's better if I can just leave it overnight. And we'll come back and compare it after it cools down. So I've left this overnight, and so now let's take this out and see how we've done in terms of length on this liner. Okay, so let's take a look at the toe first of all. Just the roundness of the toe here, you can see how this is a little bit more open than that is. This is a little bit more pointed. I don't know if you can see that in the video, but it's fairly somewhat obvious to me. So let's compare the length here. And basically we've got about 4 millimeters, maybe 5 millimeters out of that liner. So, and that, generally speaking, is about how much is left over before we stretch it. That gap in the toe and the heel in a typical boot, that gap of the liner inside the cavity of the shell is about 4 millimeters, 3 to 4 millimeters. Don't ask me why boot companies make it that way. It's a big mystery. But anyway, that's how you stretch a liner. Again, it's probably one of the most effective way to gain length very quickly out of a boot if you just have a slight amount of toe pressure. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.